All right. All right. So good morning, everybody. We're here at our coffee and conversation this morning. And today we have Dave Hennessey, who's here. And he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. And he is actually running to be Pelham State Rep. Is that correct, Dave?
Kind of. Here in Pelham, we're linked with Hudson. The Hudson and Pelham district, we have 11 state reps between the two towns. We have one person who lives in Pelham. And that's been true for the last almost 20 years that we've had just one state rep. Almost all Republicans, but we had Hal Line. Many of you know Hal. He was a state rep for a while. But it's almost impossible for a Pelham resident to win the election. And it is impossible for a Democrat like myself to win because of the overwhelming number of Republicans in Hudson. So if they have a full ticket, they are going to get elected. Last year, 2 years ago, I ran as a placeholder, which just means my name was on the ballot just to keep the other side from putting a name in New Hampshire. If there's no, if you're not if you don't fill the ticket, if you don't have 11 people running in our district, the Republicans can put a name in both columns, both Democrat and Republican. So both sides try to fill the ticket and have the 11 people run. So I'm not going to win. I understand that. So basically, I'm running on one big issue, and that's redistricting. Back in 2010, after the census, actually 2011-12, when the numbers came out, there was an attempt to change our district. We were linked with not only Hudson, but Litchfield of all places. So it was Litchfield, Hudson, and Pelham. And ever since then, a lot of people, including the Republicans, this isn't really a partisan thing, have been trying to get that changed. There was a commission set up where, unfortunately, the Republicans voted against setting up this independent commission. But everybody, our state rep from Pelham has supported the idea of redistricting. So I don't want to make this a partisan thing. But next year in the State House, they're going to redistrict based on the census that's going on right now. And so this is a very, very important election to get people who are pledged to give Pelham its own district. We're the single largest town in New Hampshire, along with Hudson, the two of us, without its own district. 11 state reps, and we share the state reps. And what makes it even tougher in Pelham, and I posted this on Facebook page, our state rep is from Salem. Our executive counselor is from Kingston. We're in Hillsborough County, but our state senator is out of Rockingham County, as is our commissioner. So Pelham is like, it's a colony of Hillsborough in the midst of Rockingham County. And I really think, given our size and given issues, that we need our own district. So that's my whole thing. It really is what I'm after. I'm a pretty liberal guy. This is not a liberal town. I'm not interested in gun control. I'm not interested in, just realistic things. But primarily, it's to get us our own district. I think it's important. So that's my campaign pitch.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised that it isn't its own, that it's lumped in with Hudson and Litchfield. That's odd to me. And like you said, and then to have your other, what did you say, your senator is linked with Rockingham.
Well, our state senator is out of Salem, and the other town in this is Atkinson.
Yeah.
Because we're in Hillsborough County, those towns are in Rockingham. There is certainly a problem with communication, and also just unifying the delegation.
Yeah.
When we start running these campaigns, both sides, Republican and Democrats, you wonder why we don't get a lot of attention here in Pelham. It's because we're so fractured. You don't have the state senator and the and the member of the executive council and the other big shots coming into town because it's so fractured. We're kind of neither here nor there. We're neither really Hillsborough or Rockingham, and we get overlooked a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it is important, especially Pelham, we're a border community. We have, our population is increasing dramatically. I've seen, buildings and homes going in. So having that proper representation for the community is important. So I definitely agree. So on other issues, I know you were a realtor, and I was just talking about the housing market in Pelham, pretty hot. Are you actually retired? I know a while ago when we were doing that workshop, you were retiring.
I was for the last 20 years, 21 years, up until March of last year, I was a manager for Caldwell Banker. Before that, DeWolf, and then Caldwell Banker bought them. And I've been in several offices, but the last 10 years, I was manager of the Amherst Caldwell Banker office, 44 agents. I was the manager and worked for Caldwell Banker nationally. In March, I retired, and I didn't do much last year. I sold a couple of houses here in Pelham, listed a couple. Just sold one. You may know David Kinsman over in Blueberry Circle. We sold his house. That just closed a couple of weeks ago. But mainly what I've been doing until this epidemic struck is I was teaching pre-licensing to people to get a real estate license. And that until recently had to be a live class. So that was off the board. So I haven't been doing that. I am going to be doing some listing and putting some properties on the market, but my primary interest is the education, is the teaching. So hopefully we can get back to that either online or maybe at some point get back to a live class. Poor people that took my class were within 2 weeks of finishing it. And then they were ready to take the test. There's no test. And until a week ago, we couldn't have an online class. So we're working to get online so they can get finished up and get ready for their test. And then we'll start new classes in probably July.
Wow. Yeah,
that's
awesome.
my interest.
That's great. And teaching the next group of realtors coming through is probably very rewarding.
I was a teacher. That's my background. I was a teacher at Methuen High School, taught social studies in the 70s. And I've always considered myself more of a teacher than anything else. And I do like doing that. That was my plan to begin with when I retired. Although I enjoy real estate. Again, I spoke and I always managed a fair number of people in different offices. I managed offices in Andover, North Andover, mainly Methuen, Lawrence, Portsmouth, Plastow, Londonderry, and then Amherst, which I love. I loved my office in Amherst, but it was time for me to allow somebody else to take over. At some point, I think you start working on memory instead of ideas. And I think it's time to step aside then.
Yeah. Well, in the market prior to COVID, it is super hot. Real estate it seems like it's every time you like turn around, it's like houses go on the market, but then they're coming right off. I mean, it's like these turnaround houses, people are really looking to buy. I don't know if the virus is going to change any of that, but it does seem like it's still pretty active.
I don't mean to be a downer. I've been accused of being a downer about the real estate market, and I'm not. You described the market perfectly. It has been a seller's market now, particularly in the spring, for 4 years. So from, say, February until the end of April, the market's torrid, and it's been like that. So every house that comes on has a line. It's like Disney World. You can put up those lines. People get in line and win their way into the house for an open house. You get multiple offers, and if it's priced correctly, it's going to be sold in a matter of days. this epidemic has only made it worse. A friend of mine just listed a property up in Manchester, and was put on the market a week before. You can do that with no showings. Showings starting on the Saturday and Sunday. She had 70 appointments. She had 40 offers on that property. And that's the definition of a seller's market. But here's the flip side of that. For every seller who sells, you've got 70 people, in this case, 69 people who didn't get the house they wanted. And the demand is just like off the charts, and they can't get into a house. That's one of the reasons we got involved with that charrette. The housing issue in southern New Hampshire is horrendous. There just simply aren't enough homes out there to satisfy the number of people who want to buy a house. And as good as the market is, when you look at the number, there are fewer houses that are being sold each year, not because people don't want to sell or buy, but because there just aren't enough homes. That's driving the prices up. So here in Pelham, you've got average sale price into the 400,000 range. You've got homes on the market at 600,000 that two years ago would have been in the mid fours. The prices are up, and a lot of people just can't afford it. And even then they're stretching to try and buy, but they're going to get beat out. It's really a difficult situation. Lots of reasons. Not a whole lot of houses are getting built, despite what you see here in Pelham. What you're seeing built in Pelham are mainly age-restricted homes that were approved a couple of years ago. They're just now getting built. As you know, we no longer have age-restricted housing. So that's what you see on the landscape, mostly the age-restricted housing. Standard homes, regular old homes, are all going in at the $500,000 and $600,000 range, brand new construction. And there's just not enough of them. You mentioned Pelham's getting overgrown. It's sprawl. I mean, there's homes and properties, and these projects are all over the landscape. But in fact, our population, we'll see what happens when the census comes out, but we have probably gone up by less than 2 or 3% since 2010. We're still right around 14,000 people, but those people are spread over a much larger part of the landscape.
Gotcha.
That it's sprawl. It's not so much, lots of new people. My cat's about to knock something off the counter.
Yeah, it's funny. I live in Nashua, and you very rarely see new construction in Nashua because it's just so built up. There's very, at least where I'm driving around, I don't ever see new houses because there's no place really to, unless it's like squished in between. Like occasionally you'll be driving, like, how did they fit that house in there? But yeah, you don't see it very often. So coming over here, driving up Sherburne Road, like in the last couple of years, it's like just been boom, 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 boom. Every time I drive down there, there's like something's being put in. So it's amazing to me, but there's obviously more land over here available.
Well, Nashua actually, in the area, the area where the apartments are going up, the old mill yard, those have all been converted, and so a lot of housing units have been put on the market in Nashua. The interesting thing is, as you know, in Nashua, with Mr. Stabile back in the 50s and 60s, and then into the 70s even, put up dozens and dozens of ranches and capes, and that was the affordable housing. Up until this year, those last 2 years, those have been going in the mid 200 range. Now, those are very hard to come by, that price point in New Hampshire. And so we kiddily talk about the wars in Nashua, and it's a generational war. The millenniums are trying to buy their first home, and the older people, like my age, are trying to downsize, and they want those same homes. They want a small lot in a nice neighborhood, a little less, enough room for a garden. They want it under 300 grand. And so every house over the last, especially in Bicentennial School District in Nashua, every house that goes on has a line of people begging to buy it. And it's generally millenniums versus the boomers. Boomers win every time because we're financially more secure and we are ready to go.
Yeah.
We've sold our house or have it under agreement. And that's what's been happening in Nashville. Nashville is probably one of the hottest real estate markets in the Northeast, along with Lebanon and Hanover market and Portsmouth. But Nashville's been amazing because of that market, those kinds of homes, that price point.
Yeah. I live in Sunset, in the Sunset District.
Mm-hmm.
And so those ranches and Little Capes, they go on the market and within a day, they're
Absolutely.
they're gone. And I always tell my husband, I'm like, we're sitting on a gold mine because my house is
Wow.
is a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot ranch with a little addition and a 1-car garage on a flat piece of property fenced in, and a dead end on one side. So
Lovely.
I know we would
Those
have.
was, I have a couple of buyers if you're interested, Sarah.
No, I love my house. I love it. And it's so funny because when I bought it, we bought our house in 2010, I think. And we had moved from Nashua, just from an older home that needed a lot of work, to this little 1950s ranch. And I walked in and I was like, I can age in place here. I'm like, my husband's like, you're crazy. I'm like, you're thinking about being, I'm like, it's all one floor. You have your bathroom, your bedroom, your kitchen, everything is one floor. It's like one step down out to a nice flat yard. I'm like, I could live here forever. And I love it. But that's, you know what, we have families that are in these McMansions, and they're spending hundreds of thousands, hundreds and hundreds, like $500,000-$600,000 on these
Sure.
homes. It's crazy. I don't know how young people do it, or if they're just renting longer because there's not enough of the homes on the market.
They are renting longer. In some cases, of course, it's all double income. The house we're living in, it sounds like yours. This is Alicia. When I remarried and moved to Pelham, she had built this house with her father, and it's a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot ranch. It's on a fair amount of land, 13 acres, but the house is a small house. And yeah, we're going to stay here. The last house I had was, for me, a McMansion. Today's numbers, it's about 2,700 square feet in Methuen. And I raised my family. And then when my wife died, I just couldn't keep it up. I couldn't afford it. So I moved into an apartment and then remarried. And Alicia was nice enough to have me come in as a tenant. So that's how I came to Pelham.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's very interesting. And in regards to the whole real estate market and dealing with real estate, you're also involved with the Conservation Committee, correct? Or you were?
I'm with the ZBA. Alicia and the zoning board. Alicia was chairwoman of the conservation many years ago. And when I first got into town, she wrote me into getting involved. So I was involved in the purchase of some land over by Gumpers Pond on Hines Lane, about 150 acres. And that was my first foray into town. It's not really politics. Everybody wanted it. In the campaign to get money to purchase land, $3 million. This town astounded a lot of folks by actually approving that way back when and buying land. That's why Pelham has such beautiful conservation areas all over town. We took a walk at the Wolven property yesterday over on Island Pond and off Currier Road. What a beautiful little jewel that is. We have so many beautiful spots to walk around in that, and we used to say saved from development. Well, it was saved for the people in town and, to take nice walks. And we are so lucky in this town to have all that land available. It's the Wolven was it's a jewel, absolutely stunning. It's for seniors like me. I'm not ready to go hiking the White Mountains, but I can do a half-mile stroll through the woods. Woven property is, and we have others right near my house. And of course, we have a fair amount of land behind us, 13 acres. So I can walk through the woods here as well. And in this whole pandemic, we've been so lucky we can get out into the countryside, not run into people. We don't have to worry about it. I keep my mask in my pocket, but rarely do I need it. And I don't know how many people, I wish more people would use it, but I'm kind of glad they don't, because I like kind of walking through the woods alone.
They're really, really lovely. We have a great walking group, our Pelham Awesome Walkers, our PAW, we call it PAW. And they have spent a lot of time doing the hikes and walking through the Courier Forest, the Peabody Forest, Woven, which just opened. I think, was it last year? Was
Yeah.
And I've heard that's really nice. What are some of the other ones they did? There's another.
You have a couple of your Sherman Road. There's a project up there, and Hines Lane, of course.
Yep. There's some beautiful, beautiful hiking trails right here in town. You don't have to even go like out to any other communities. They're lovely, and they're well marked, and we have a great group that keep the trails open and keep them well, like pathed, I guess. I don't know what you call that, but marked and delineated so people know where you're going. It's nice. They're really nice. They have a great website too.
Yeah, they do. The other thing I wanted to mention, one of my other hats, I'm one of Pelham's two directors along the line to the National Regional Planning Commission. I was their director, not their director, I was their chair, the chairman of the board of directors of National Regional Planning for a couple of years. And if you go onto their website, National Regional Planning Commission, go to GIS, there's a section there talking about all the parks and forests in this whole region. Of course, in Pelham, together with the Forestry Committee and Conservation, came out with this little booklet, but it's online, all the parks and recreation areas we have. But in that same page on National Regional Planning Commission, you've got other places nearby, the Bensons, for example, in Hudson. That I understand is going to open this week. It's been closed for walking tours, but that's going to be open. If you're in Nashua, what a jewel Mines Falls is. What a beautiful spot that is. And if you go over there and walk along the river, it is stunning. I think it's just magnificent. You've got another similar place all the way out in Wilton. There's a town out there that was abandoned back in the 19th century when everybody left the farms and went to the factories in Lowell and Lawrence. And there was whole areas of New Hampshire that were not only deforested before by the farms, but they were depopulated when the young women left their farms and headed off to the mills. There's a small village out there in Wilton that was abandoned. And you go out there and you can explore this really interesting archaeological dig that's been maintained and purchased by Wilton and Milford together to make it not a state park, it's just a park, it's conservation area. But we have lots of these all over the place.
That's really neat. How would you find out how to find that? Like how?
Go onto the site, National Regional Planning Commission, go to the GIS page and you'll find it. You just kick around. If you can't, just post it on the Facebook page for me and I'll point you exactly where to go. But kick around on that National Regional Planning Commission GIS plan. There's a woman over there who's also named Sarah, who is a young woman who is a genius. I mean, she is just, I sit there and I say, God, am I stupid? And she is the person in the state of New Hampshire doing what they call GIS, which is information services using computers, aerial photos. For example, she's the one that really got this town to have a really complete and accurate plat system. So everybody in town can find exactly where their house is in relationship to everything else with accurate dimensions. if you go on to our assessors records, that's based on what Sarah did for the National Regional Planning Commission.
Awesome. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all that information. That's really good. Like I said, we have a lot of people that like to walk and hike in our community in Pelham, and in our PA group. So I will make sure they know about that, because that's a really interesting thing. And it's weird that you bring it up, because a good friend of mine posted some pictures of going to an abandoned town, and I was like, oh, I wonder where that was. That's kind of interesting. I bet you that's where it is.
Wilton, yeah, out in Wilton.
Yeah, really neat, really cool. Well, I really appreciate everything you've brought to us. Before we close up, because our time is running about ending, do we have
I think
any
Janet wants to talk.
Yeah, Janet, what would you like to?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Dave. Hi, Dave.
Sure. Hi, Jen.
First of all, are you connected with the Pelham Democrats?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
as you know, we're all very interested in getting our own representative and so on. And secondly, I would like to know, what is your platform? You may be a placeholder, which is good, but if you
I'm actually running this time. I'm going to have signs and stuff.
Right.
Last time I didn't.
Yeah, but what
So
are
I'm
you
gonna
running
run.
for?
I'm not optimistic, but I think I've got a loud mouth, and so I have a message, which is primarily what I stated. We've got to get the redistricting this time around, or we're going to be stuck for the next 10 years.
Right.
That's how it's done. It stays. So in the next 2 years, they're going to redistrict. And I really, really, really want Pelham to have its own representative district. We should have 4 representatives at the State House,
Right.
and 7 from Hudson. They're already talking about having what they call a flotarial, which means one person representing both towns. But here's the thing, because Hudson is so much bigger than Pelham, that flotarial rep almost certainly is going to come from Hudson.
Right.
So we'll have 3 reps, okay, and they're going to have 8. Well, we're smaller than Hudson, but not that much smaller. We should have 4 reps. And I would also like to see the senatorial district get redistricted. Nothing against our current state senator, but we are in Hillsborough County. The county government is run primarily by a group of people who are our representatives, our senators, and our state reps, who represent the towns of Hillsborough County. Because we're so fragmented, we don't get a unified group of people talking for Pelham. Just one example, they just brought down some water, a water line, or they're working on it from Lake Massabesic all the way up in Manchester. It came down, it's coming through Wyndham, and it's Londonderry, all the way up to Manchester. The money for that project came from a settlement because of the MBTE. Remember that stuff they put in the gasoline a while ago? Pelham was affected more than any other town in this whole area. We had a section along with Wyndham, and there was money there, and it went into this group. That's where the money's coming from the water. We're not getting the water. Pelham was not getting the water because they decided we didn't need it, because we have some water coming out of Pennachuck, and we're mostly on private wells. But we have people in town who are having a hell of a time trying to get enough water from their wells. So we could have used that coming down 128 on Mammoth Road, and we're not going to get it because we're this thumb up the backside of Rockingham from Hillsborough County. So people dismiss us. We're neither fish nor fowl. We're neither Hillsborough nor Rockingham because of our geography. So and it's not getting the stuff or the largesse from the state government, stuff that we need, transportation stuff. There should be a bus route. There should be a bus route out of Pelham, okay, over into both Salem and Nashua for shopping, for doctors, and that sort of thing. Town of Milford, which is very similar in size to Pelham, has the little blue bus. that makes regular and unscheduled stops for seniors as well as education for students of special needs from Milford into Nashua. They're about as far from Nashua as we are from Nashua. They have a bus route. We've got nothing. We've got nothing. So that's
two
my
things I wanted to hear.
yeah. Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask Dave? I can't.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Let's not get, we always talk to politicians, what's your platform and all that. You got to be realistic. In New Hampshire, there's 400 state reps, all making $100 a year. Okay. I know full well that as a junior, if lightning should strike and I got elected, there's only so much I can do. So you got to focus on certain specific things.
Right.
The redistricting, I really want to focus on. I'm sure I'm going to end up, because I was a realtor for 46 years. I was, I spent a lot of time working with the New Hampshire Association of Realtors. They're going to give me some money so I can buy signs, and I'll have the signs out there. But I'll be on some kind of real estate committee. But it's the redistricting that I really want to focus on, because I think it's there that I can have the most effect. As a brand new freshman state rep, okay, among 400 people, I got a big mouth, and if I talk too much about too many things, they're going to shut down. We got to focus on just a little bit.
What's wrong with them up there? What's wrong? Really? What's wrong with it? It was so underrepresented. Who's making all these decisions? That's horrifying to me. That there's a group that won't allow the right thing to be done. That's frustrating.
I don't want to get all too political here, but the fact is, the Hudson reps, I mean, you can't talk about them as being career politicians making $100 a year. I'm sure they think they're doing well, but the truth is, back in 2012, okay, when the redistricting was up for a vote, many of us still state reps who live in Hudson voted to keep us yoked together, Pelham and Hudson. That was our best shot at getting split off. They voted unanimously, the Republicans, against setting up this bipartisan commission to do the redistricting last year. Okay? And then, again, I don't want to make this, there was an attempt, a farcical attempt, in my opinion. It was not really true to set up a separate Pelham district, but it went nowhere. 2018, that's not going to go anywhere, because nobody's going to vote for redistricting in 2018 with the census coming out in 2 more years. You follow me? That was just that was a cover. The truth is, the commission was our best shot as an independent commission. And that's the way it should have been. This has got nothing to do really about politics, should not. I can get into all kinds of conspiracy theories about why that happened. But the truth is, Pelham deserves its own, and Hudson, the 2 towns deserve their own state reps. The fact is, we have different interests. We have different things. Hudson's been trying for 20 years to get a 3rd bridge over the Merrimack. 20 years. And with the largest delegation for a town that size, basically all the state reps are Hudson except for the one from Pelham, they still haven't been able to get it done. I don't want to get too much into the politics. It's just, we need our own district, period. And the Republicans theoretically are in favor of that.
It's just got to get done. And that I think this is one of the hardest things. I know, in following one of the state reps from Nashua, she was saying how frustrating the meeting up at the Whittemore Center was. I don't know if you followed that.
I did. I heard it was a fiasco.
Yeah.
Basically, nothing is going to get passed this year. Republicans have said, we're going to sit on our hands and see what happens in November.
Yeah.
That's
That's exactly what I heard.
Yeah.
It's so sad to see it come to that. you know, it's frustrating.
But there are some important bills on. I mean, Medicaid, especially with the epidemic, there are some important things there.
Yeah.
A lot of folks have run out of health insurance. They've been laid off. They've been doing fine because they had the extra $600 in unemployment. But now the flip side of opening up, I mean, we're all excited about opening up, is opening up means that if you work for a company that now is reopening, you either have to report for work, even if you're scared stiff about pandemic, or you're fired. You're going to lose your health insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I don't think the insurance under the Affordable Care Act, they allowed that to reopen for new people. I heard that they had closed that to new.
Yeah, it's very difficult. They've clamped down.
Yes.
I think it's unfortunate that, you know, the other side of the coin, there's always two sides, but opening up is great. I think it was necessary. I know small business people. I'm scared. I'm a historian by trade. I was a teacher and into history. Take a look at the 2018 Spanish flu. Okay? In March of 1918, they had an epidemic. And if you look at the pictures, you got people with masks. Sound familiar?
Come on in.
They were told to stay away from crowds, okay? Self-isolate, the whole shebang, okay? And then in June of 2018, all flattened. It all kind of went away. And then in October of 2018, it tripled. The number of infected tripled. Let's just hope that doesn't repeat, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's one of the big fears when you see some of these communities, at least when I watch the news, I usually watch ABC World News Tonight or some of the local channels even, and they're saying how some of the states are starting to see these large upticks, and they don't seem very concerned about it. So
No.
I don't quite get that. I know we've been very careful and very cautious in the Northeast. And I think particularly New Hampshire has done a really good job considering the numbers in Massachusetts, how good we've done.
Not just Massachusetts. The four actually largest concentrations of the COVID virus in New Hampshire was Manchester, which is the largest, Nashua, Hudson, and Salem. Yeah. And here we are right plumb in the middle. We've been fortunate here in Pelham, but Nashua's number 2. Number 3, okay, is Salem, and then Hudson for infected people who are infected and deaths from COVID virus here in New Hampshire. Of course, you go across the border in Lowell, in Drake, and Lawrence especially have all been hit really, really hard. So let's just hope that we don't get that second wave. I mean, I think everybody's saying I'm such a pessimist. I'm not. I really, really hope it doesn't happen, that we've gotten through this the way we should.
Yeah, I think though it's smart to be realistic though too. And I think history is such a good indicator. I think unfortunately, I mean, I'm doing a ton since COVID work on history and learning a lot about US history and educating myself on things that I didn't learn in school, whether it just wasn't taught or just wasn't available.
Housing history teachers like me, maybe. I don't know.
I don't think it was the history teachers. I do think it was the curriculum though.
The curriculum.
Yeah, and especially in New Hampshire, like especially right now with all the racial stuff going on, my daughters actually put a petition out to improve the education in history, because even the stuff they learned excluded a lot of US history that she never even learned about until she went to college, and she was like, her eyes were open and she was like, why didn't we learn about this in school?
I posted, we'll leave this. I don't want to butt into, but I posted something this morning. There was a talk about the race riots. I mean, Tulsa race riots, people learning about that.
I gotta go.
But the single biggest event, okay, lynching, was in New Orleans in the 1890s. Okay, the police chief David Hennessey was killed, and they blamed the Italians in New Orleans, and 11 were killed. They were broken out of jail when they were acquitted and killed, and there was dozens of others that were killed. And the Italians were considered at the time very similar to the blacks, okay, to the freedmen, because they were mostly Sicilian, and that was the single biggest lynching event in American history. Wow. In New Orleans, 1890s. So, all right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for.
No, I love it. History is fascinating, but I think we need to learn from history that helps us kind of move forward and know where we're going in our present, right? Because that's how we got here. So I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing all this amazing information with us. Thank you for being our special guest. Next week, we do not have a coffee and conversation program. I'm actually on vacation. So I'll be taking a few days off this week, so Wednesday through Monday. But we'll have one the following week. And I don't know, we probably won't have a guest that week. We're probably just going to do a nice little social gathering, which will be nice. But if any one of you here or someone you're talking with has an idea of a guest or somebody they'd like to hear from, please let me know. That's how I grabbed Dave. And so if there is someone that you're interested in hearing from, please send that person's information my way, and I will reach out to them and see if they will join us on these coffee and conversation programs. So again, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna stop the recording.